Pravikarajacharya Shata Shata Shata. Don't grab it like that. Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Pravikarajacharya Shata Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, so reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, text, let's see here, 15. So word for word. So, Swa, Shanta, Upesha, Itarai, Swa, Rupai, Abya
Paravaresho mahadamsha yukto Yajo pijato bhagavan yatagni Swashanta rupe shvitarai swarupe Abhyardayamane shvanukampitatma Paravaresho mahadamsha yukto Yajo pijato bhagavan yatagni Swashanta rupe shvitarai swarupe Abhyardayamane shvanukampitatma Paravaresho mahadamsha yukto Yajo pijato bhagavan yatagni.
Mataji's.
Swashanta rupe shvitarai swarupe Abhyardayamane shvanukampitatma Paravaresho mahadamsha yukto Yajo pijato bhagavan yatagni Swashanta rupe shvitarai swarupe Abhyardayamane shvanukampitatma Paravaresho mahadamsha yukto Yajo pijato bhagavan yatagni Swashanta rupe shvitarai swarupe Abhyardayamane shvanukampitatma Paravaresho mahadamsha yukto Yajo pijato bhagavan yatagni.
Alrighty. Word for word. Okay, so. Swashantarupeshu. Unto the peaceful devotees of the Lord. Itarai. Others. Non-devotees. Sarupai. According to their own modes of nature. Abhyardayamaneshu. Being harassed by. Anukampita. Atma. The all compassionate Lord. Paravara. spiritual and material. Ishaha, controller. Mahat Amsa Yuktaha, accompanied by the plenary portion of Mahat Tattva. He, certainly. Ajaha, the unborn. Api, although. Jataha, is born. Bhagavan, personality of Godhead. Yata, as if. Agni, the fire. Okay. Translation, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Alrighty. Personality of Godhead, the all-compassionate controller of both the spiritual and material creations, is unborn. But when there is friction between His peaceful devotees and persons who are in the material modes of nature, He takes birth just like fire, accompanied by the Mahat Tattva. The devotees of the Lord are by nature peaceful because they have no material hankering. A liberated soul has no hankering, and therefore he has no lamentation. One who wants to possess also laments when he loses his possession. Devotees have no hankerings for material possessions and no hankerings for spiritual salvation. They are situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord as a matter of duty, and they do not mind where they are or how they have to act. Karmis, Jnanis, and Yogis all hanker to possess some material or spiritual assets. Karmis want material possessions. Jnanis and Yogis want spiritual possessions. But devotees do not want any material or spiritual assets. They want only to serve the Lord anywhere in the material or spiritual worlds that the Lord desires. And the Lord is always specifically compassionate towards such devotees. The Karmis, Jnanis, and Yogis have their particular mentalities in the modes of nature, and therefore they are called Itara, or non-devotees. These Itaras, including even the Yogis, sometimes harass the devotees of the Lord. The Rasa Muni, a great yogi, harassed Maharaj Ambarish because the latter was a great devotee of the Lord. And the great Karmi and Jnani, Hiranyakashipu, even harassed his own Vaishnav son, Prahlad Maharaj. There are many instances of such harassment of the peaceful devotees of the Lord by the Itaras. When such friction takes place, the Lord, out of His great compassion towards His pure devotees, appears in person, accompanied by His plenary portions controlling the Mahat Tattva. The Lord is everywhere in both the material and spiritual domains, and He appears for the sake of His devotees when there is friction between His devotee and the non-devotee. As electricity is generated by friction of matter anywhere and everywhere, the Lord, being all-pervading, appears because of the friction of devotees and non-devotees. When Lord Krishna appears on a mission, all His plenary portions accompany Him. When He appeared as the son of Vasudeva, there were differences of opinion about His incarnation. Some said, He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Some said, He is an incarnation of Narayana. And others said, He is the incarnation of Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. But actually, He is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. And Narayan, the Purusha, and all other incarnations accompany Him to function as different parts of His pastimes. Mahad Amsa Yuktaha indicates that He is accompanied by the Purushas who create the Mahat Tattva. It is confirmed in the Vedic hymns, Mahantam Vibhum Atmanam. Lord Krishna appeared just like electricity when there was friction between Kamsa and Vasudeva and Ugrasena. Vasudeva and Ugrasena were the Lord's devotees, and Kamsa, a representative of the Karmis and Jnanis, was a non-devotee. Krishna, as He is compared to the sun. He first appeared from the ocean of the womb of Devaki, and gradually satisfied the inhabitants of the places surrounding Mathura, just as the sun enlivens the lotus flower in the morning. After gradually rising to the meridian of Dwarka, the Lord set like the sun, placing everything in darkness, as described by Uddhava. Om Ganatimanandasya Gananjanjana Salakaya Chakshurudam Yamitamina Tasman Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitamina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shukta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnamam Shah Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganatam Tam Shrivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Dijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalitam Shri Vishakamitam Shah Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikas Swami Nityanamne Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamne Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravana Pacharni Nivishesha Shuni Bhari Pashitarni Hare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Prasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Santa Rupeshwari Tarai Saruper Abhyarjamane Shvanukam Pitatma Paresh Paravaresho Mahad Amsa Yukto Yajobhi Jato Bhagavan Yatagnihi. The personality of Godhead, the all-compassionate controller of both the spiritual and material creations, is unborn. But there is friction between his peaceful devotees and persons who are in the material modes of nature. He takes birth just like fire, accompanied by the Mahat Tattva. This is continuing Uddhava's remembrance of Lord Krishna. And so these verses to come, Uddhava will be thinking of different aspects of Krishna and him on the planet and what he did and what he accomplished and all those different things like that. So there's so much that can be said actually. I don't know, there's a devotee, he left the world some years ago. His name was Kalki Prabhu. So he translated some books that we have in ISKCON, and he also helped with the translation of the, the 10th, 11th, and 12th cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But anyways, he, at one point, as I heard Soni's Bhakti Vikas Maharaj say this in a lecture recently. There's some years, I mean the lecture was like a very long time ago, probably like in 2000 or something. So anyways, so Gopi Pranadana Prabhu was giving, there's overview. Sometimes we have like an overview of something, like that's very common nowadays. And even Karmi world and also within Krishna consciousness, we have like books, overview of Bhagavatam, and then or like Bhagavatam at glance, and then it's, it's very short, and then you get a whole understanding of the Srimad Bhagavatam by looking at it. And those things are good, of course. I'm not like smashing those or anything. Those have those place. And then Gopi Pranadana Prabhu had something where he would call it Srimad Bhagavatam underview. So sometimes, like they'll do Bhakti Shastri or something, or they'll cover like, whatever, a chapter or something, or a Bhagavatam like in a week or something like that. But Gopi Pranadana Prabhu at one point, I think it was the first or second chapter of the first canto. I think maybe the second chapter. Anyways, whatever one it was, but I think on one of the verses or something like that, or something, I'm forgetting all the details, but he spent, I think, 2 months just discussing like one or two verses, going through like every single word or something like that. So, and when I first heard that, I was pretty amazed actually. But I was joking with another devotee, and I was saying, if we were to like say we're gonna have a seminar on one verse of Bhagavatam and discuss that for, 2 months, it might be a little too much for some of us. But the thing is that Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna, so there's just so many different meanings and nuances and interesting things that can be brought out if one knows, Sanskrit, and one looks at the commentary of the previous acharyas, and then also just plain old spiritual inspiration. Like we go on book distribution or whatever service it is, and we receive like some inspiration, and we say something, whatever, we talk to people, we get into the group. So the same thing, it's like, anyways, Sukadeva Goswami and all these devotees are on the pure liberated platform, so they get inspired by the bhakti shakti of Lord, or of Krishna, his devotees, and then they can speak very elaborately on different things and bring out, amazing points and stuff like that. We see also with Sanatana Goswami that when he was on sick leave, for under the Nawab Hussain, that he had so many different Brahmins there trying to understand and study Srimad Bhagavatam. I think it's like 10 Brahmanas mentioned or something like that. So you can imagine if there's so many exalted devotees and then just trying to understand one verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, how much nectar that can be pulled out. And then also see too, when we hear those things, we feel inspired, and especially when it's discussed amongst devotees, and then it kind of brings makes it relevant. That's not the word I'm looking for. Relevant to our lives. So, anyways, I'm not on any level of those great devotees. I'm not much a devotee at all. But this particular verse, I thought there was like a lot of nice points that were mentioned. I won't be able to cover all of them. What is this here? It's interesting actually. So this word, if you look at the Sanskrit, paranapara, you can just go there real quick. Just jump up so you can see it. But so paranapara, Prabhupada translates as spiritual material. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur brings out an interesting point about that. But I believe, just check the reference here real quick, so I don't cheat you. But so anyways, he makes the point that para and apara is the forms of Narayan, and then which are beyond Prakriti, and then avara is the Lord Brahman, others. So anyways, he just brings out the point that like you could look at that and say what is here exactly, but that he's controller, the Isha, the controller of Narayan, and then also Brahma. So anyways, just like different little things there, and that could be a whole discussion, and then that's mentioned in the purport somewhat, where it was being mentioned that is some saying that Krishna, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, some saying he's Narayan, who's what's what. Anyways, that's a whole big discussion, and I'm not really going to get so much into that in this class. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur discusses that. And then that's also discussed within Srimad Bhagavatam, very much so, in detail. So there's so much that can be said. But anyways, just jumping into the purport. So the first sentence, the devotees of the Lord are by nature peaceful because they have no material hankering. That's a very common point discussed in different verses in the Bhagavad Gita, and also Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, and also Chaitanya Charitamrita. So does anybody know that? Well, there's a couple verses, but does anybody know a verse that kind of substantiates that point in the first sentence? Except Mitravan.
Brahmabhuta Prasanatma.
Yeah. That's there. There's also a verse too, which will kind of get brought out more, which I was thinking. That's what I was thinking specifically about that one. But also in this purport, this verse, that was Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ateva Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakaliya Shanta. So those verses pretty much say the same thing. This verse is saying that pretty much the devotees, they're peaceful because, Krishna Bhakta Nishkam, because they have no desires at the Ateva Shanta, so they're peaceful. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakaliya Shanta. So all these, Bhukti Mukti cities, pretty much karmis, gyanis, and yogis, they're not peaceful because they want something. So it's actually an interesting point that Srila Prabhupada brings out here, that this, what is this here? Liberated soul has no hankering, therefore he has no lamentation. So it's not like necessarily in and of itself like the highest spiritual principle to stop hankering. Don't hank, if you don't want anything, then you'll be peaceful or whatever, like some these pseudo-religious principles and things like that. And pseudo in the sense that it's like kind of spiritual, but it's not, like Buddhists will preach that, and other people, you have to stop desire and all those different like funny ideas like that. But it's an interesting point. And so, and we see it, and then people, speak that nowadays, because then it's simple, if you're wanting something material, then it's, you're desiring that, you want it, and then, then you get it, and then you're not satisfied or whatever, or you get it, and then you lose it, and then you're in distress or whatever it is. And that happens so much nowadays, people, whatever, they buy a car, and then they crash the car, or they work so hard to get a job, and then they get laid off, there's so many instances of that, or whatever. People work so hard to, get in some position materially, and then there's like, whatever. Invest so much in the stock market, and there's a crash, great depressions. And then I remember growing up, there was like the house market crash or something. I remember hearing about that. I don't really know so much about that because I was pretty young. But but there's like kind of all these things there, and then and people are so invested in material things. And so, anyways, they're disturbed and they're not peaceful. So let's see here. And so, anyways, continuing the purport. So Prabhupada brings out, the inverse of that, which is the main thing, is devotees have no hankerings for material possessions and no hankerings for spiritual salvation. So that kind of sums up everything that one could desire, whatever. So material aspirations or so-called spiritual aspirations. Here, spiritual salvation is referring to liberation. It's a common asked question and discussion. Well, we're practicing Krishna consciousness. Does that mean that we don't desire to go, do we desire to go back home, back to Godhead? And Prabhupada answered that definitely in different places, but the general answer is that we should desire to go back home, back to Godhead. And but in the highest stages, we don't even desire that. So there's a stage beyond wanting to go back home, back to Godhead. But the thing is that if we're engaged in Krishna service, then we're in the spiritual world, no matter where we're at, and we're completely happy and satisfied, because then we're on the position of just desiring what Krishna desires, which Srila Prabhupada brings out that point at the end, or the end of the first paragraph, is that so the devotees, they want only to serve the Lord anywhere in the material or spiritual worlds that the Lord desires. And the Lord is always specifically compassionate towards such devotees. So, anyways, it's amazing actually. So it's from another perspective, just kind of, going back to the basics. Material, what is this here? Material possessions. So devotees have no hankering for material possessions, and no hankerings for spiritual salvation. So we may not be exactly on that level. We may have, some unrest in our hearts, be a little restless. We want this, we want that, or anyways, and it could be so many things that we may want. We may, it's the thing is that when we're living in the temple and we're surrounded by devotees, that tendency can be curbed a lot actually. But then we see sometimes the devotees, they leave association, or they get into bad association or materialistic association. Those desires can come out or be produced, and what may be common is the desire for maybe just being liked in the Vaishnava society for not really spiritual reasons, but whatever, give good kirtan and people like my singing or whatever, or trying to portray oneself as like being very intelligent, or being recognized as a great devotee, or even something as gross as just like wanting to just make a lot of money, Lakshmi, and they're like that, or things, or being very ambitious to solidify oneself in the material world and have a great career, or whatever it is. And then so many different things like that, and we generally, we don't hear, but it's said, and I've seen it's, people that, very much devotee, chanting Hare Krishna, very much balanced in my material and spiritual life. So, balanced in material and spiritual life. We generally see in Shastra, Varnashram is there, of course, we want to have a base or a platform to practice Krishna consciousness, and some semblance of material life is needed for that, but we don't want to have a balanced material life on the basis of a demoniac society, that my life is very balanced according to these vikarmis outside. So we see, and then, desire for, money, and then, whatever, and then mundane education. Sometimes in Vaishnava society, it seems devotees place a lot of emphasis on, college degrees, I've seen that much. I've seen that a lot. And they'll introduce a devotee and say, such and such devotee got a degree from such and such. And then everybody's all like, wow. But then nobody's very much interested in, like what that, it's like, it's kind of glossed over that devotee, surrendered so many of his years to book distribution, or was a brahmachari for this amount of years, or that this Mataji it took so much effort to like raise her kids and stuff like that, or whatever it is, or they surrendered so many years at Prabhupada's temple. It's kind of like, yeah, but they got a degree, and it's like amazing. And so we have to be aware of being, because the thing is that in Krishna consciousness, and we see that also in the Bhagavad Gita, the point is mentioned that Arjuna was trying to use Krishna consciousness in one sense to justify, what he wanted to do, his material desires. Of course, he's a pure devotee, he doesn't have material desires, but that's there to teach us. So we have to be careful and conscious of misusing what we learn in Krishna consciousness in order to justify our material aspirations, or to whatever. Or we have material desires, but then we think they're spiritual desires because we don't have a clear understanding of what spiritual and what material is. And so that's why it's important to have a spiritual master and to hear from him regularly, and also to have the association of sadhus who understand that very clearly. Because otherwise, we miss the point. Just like it's being mentioned, I forgot who was mentioning that point recently, but maybe it was Mahosa Prabhu or somebody. But they're making the point that we're practicing Krishna consciousness, okay, and whatever, like mathematics. If you're shooting, whatever. If I want to, shoot that wall, but then, whatever, I take the gun and just aim it up there, I'm going to shoot the roof. So the thing is, we're trying to aim the arrow. Or not, maybe not, I don't want to say that. We're trying to throw some flowers at Krishna's lotus feet. So, but if we just take it and then Krishna's there and then we just throw it behind or whatever. But the thing is, it's not like so gross like that sometimes with Krishna consciousness. It's a little bit more subtle like that. So the thing is, we have to always be like focused properly. And then that's why it's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. What is that? Vyavasatmika buddhi ekeya kurunandana. So not many branch intelligence, but ekeya kurunandana. So one whose resolutions is fixed. And so it's difficult, and it's not easy and stuff. But materially speaking, material life's not easy also. But who's like in the material world? Yeah, it's a cake. I just I dropped out of college, I dropped out of high school, and then I just was walking on the street, and someone came up to me and was like, "Man, you want this job that pays like $200K a year?" And I was just like, "Yeah." And it's like, "What's your qualification?" I have no qualification. I can't study, I can't focus, I can't control my senses. Whatever. Living with my parents, and he's like, "You qualify." That doesn't happen. People, if they want to achieve something in material life, they have to work really hard, actually. And then most of the time, people too, they work really hard, and then they get burned out. So there's burnout also in the material sphere. We don't really hear of it so much because we associate with devotees, but devotees get fried out in Krishna consciousness, or get burned out and things, and that happens. And then we get recharged and go back. The karmis are getting burned out, and the thing is, what is their yatra? The yatra is Disneyland. If they're anywhere else in the world, and then if you're in Florida, I don't know. Anyways, growing up, my family wasn't so rich, so we didn't go anywhere on yatra. There was no yatra. Didn't go nowhere. Maybe go to the beach. Anyways, my family went nowhere. Actually, I go with other people. We went nowhere. We go to see my cousin or my uncle in Fort Lauderdale, and even Miami. And then we went to the casino. And then, anyways, it was a funny thing. So that was yatra, I guess, the casino. That was anyways, my family's not, some of my family's not big gamblers, but anyways, we went to the casino. But so that's usually yatra. And then if you're in, if you're in Florida, then you go to New York. If you're in New York, you go to Florida. If you're in California, I don't know where you go. Hawaii. Okay, yeah. And if you're in Hawaii, it doesn't get much better than that. And then whatever. Then you may go to other parts of the world. You go to Europe. And then if you're in India, of course, you go to America. And if you can't afford to go to America, I guess you go to Singapore or something like that. Or I don't really know where else they go. And then Russia, I don't know where people go on holiday for Russia. And then anyways, in Europe, there's the Baltic coast and stuff, and whenever people go to Croatia for the beaches. So anyways, people have their yatra to get some relief from the material energy. And so the point is that people are struggling in the material world, and we may not see that, we may not recognize that, but we should understand that's the verdict of Shakta, bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, sakala, yashanta. So the karmis, they're not peaceful, and that can be analyzed in so many different ways, But the thing is that we have to work hard, materially or spiritually, for whatever it is that we want. And so best thing, of course, is to work hard for Srila Prabhupada and his mission, for the pleasure of the spiritual master, for the Vaishnavas. We should work hard in that way. And we should push ourselves. Because generally, I was thinking also recently, is that, of course, the material energy is the same, but is mutable, and Maya comes differently in different, generations. Anyways, there's different, whatever. Specifically in America, it's not so much in other parts of the world. I don't agree so much, but, there's different, generations, and I can't really remember them all, but, whatever, Generation X and this and that. And so within those spheres, there's different Maya that comes with that. And so in one aspect of whatever, the current generations, people don't like to work hard. They want everything instantly. And so we should recognize that we have that tendency and overcome that and work hard. Because what it boils down to is that, whatever, we see these sadhus and these great devotees, and we can get inspiration from that people who have given up, material desires, and they recognize, the uselessness of, flaunting a college degree as, some high qualification of bhakti yoga, or whatever, of knowing so many different things, or whatever it may be, being materially successful. That's not a sign of a great devotee. But the sign of a great devotee is one's surrender to the instructions of his spiritual master, and becoming free from material desires, and having some taste and some affinity for Krishna and his devotees. Just like we're seeing here with Uddhava. We're seeing practically that he's engaged in, so much is going on actually, but he's completely absorbed in Krishna. And that was mentioned, I think, in previous verses. What is this? That I think Bhakti Vikas Maharaj spoke on that. I'll just read that here quickly. It was verse 5 or 6. Let me see here. Oh yeah, so text 4. So muhurtam abut tushnam krishnad sudaya vrisham tirvyena bhakti yogena nimagama sadhu nirvitaha. So for a moment he remained dead silent, and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy, and he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. So that's the position of Uddhava. And so we can see those things and be inspired, because also what's being mentioned in this verse, so these, we are speaking about karmis, gyanis, yogis, all wanting something. And so they have, desire, they have material desire. And so we may say whatever, it's somewhat spiritual because of desire, whatever. It's spiritual in the sense that it's not something material, but it is material, desiring spiritual salvation. And specifically, gyanis and yogis, that's kind of their desire. They want, sometimes they say whatever, they want to be God or something. I was listening to a class by Srila Prabhupada last night. It was a long class, actually. I think he was in Scotland. And so anyways, this guy goes on in the class for so long, you can't hear what he's saying. And then there's a devotee that's kind of I guess the guy asked the question and he kind of condensed it, and then he gives it to Srila Prabhupada. And so anyways, he thinks this whole thing, and the guy's like, what are you saying? What is your question? And sometimes we have that. People ask a question in, Sunday feast, and not really asking a question. They're just whatever, want to speak their philosophy here because they're so defeated outside, and they're half crazy. So anyways, he was just going on and on. The guy's like, what's your question? And then he said it again. He's like, what is your question? Are you trying to present a philosophy or that? And then pretty much it got to his question, or his comment was, I am God. And then so Prabhupada gave his famous comeback is, you're not God, you're a dog. And I was thinking, wow, it was getting a little heavy. And I was thinking immediately when Srila Prabhupada said that, well, a couple things was that that's a heavy thing to just shout at somebody in the middle of class, start calling somebody a dog. Srila Prabhupada did that, of course, and we should definitely adopt that mood. And I was just thinking also by hearing that, because nowadays in our society is very much emphasized that whatever, you shouldn't you should speak like very like nicely and like this and that and like praise, and then like, somebody says something and you should like say some nice things, and then say like the mean thing you want to say, and then say some nice things again, so you don't like bruise the ego. And that may be like needed, but anyway, Srila Prabhupada didn't do all that in that instance. So anyways, he called him a dog, and then Srila Prabhupada explained very lucidly that like, okay, you're saying you're God, but like, are you the controller? Like, answer that. Like, are you the controller? And the guy was like saying, well, I'm like the controller. And he's like, no, you don't make it rain. Like, you're like controlled in so many ways. Like, you go to your home and like, you're the controller of your wife and kids, but then you're like controlled when you go to work by your boss. And so he was like, it's like very like clear point. And the guy was like shouting some stuff still. And Srila Prabhupada kind of like made that point. I'm trying to think of what else he said. But he made that point like pretty clear. And he was just like, you're not God. Like, you're not God. You're not the supreme controller. And then the other people in the audience started like clapping. And then the man got like quiet. So, but that's kind of like that idea. People, they think that, well, we're God. And then we see here, there's like this one, anyways, we won't say the name, but anyways, I don't think any of you really know him. But there was this one bogus yogi, I think somewhere in South India. Mahotsa and Bishop Prabhu, they would know. He's pretty famous. But anyways, he's famously known for saying that like man minus desire is God. But it's a misconception. And anyways, that can be analyzed in so many ways. There's a class by Holiness Bhakti Prakash Maharaj. I think it's called Hidden River of Desire. It's an amazing class, actually. And so anyways, he talks about this point, and he talks about that bogus yogi. What is this? I think Maharishi was his name. But so anyway, so he would preach like that, and then he seemed like very renounced, his big yogi. Anyways, there's a point to this. So yogi, renounced, barely eating anything. I think he just had like some koban, living on a hill, different caves, whatever. It seems like a very spiritual person, but if we analyze it, not a spiritual person at all. Because the thing is that he has the biggest material desire of all. What's the biggest material desire? Is the biggest material desire to like have a limited amount of sex? That's a material desire, or is it to to be, what's it called? To be the emperor of the planet, or to have, a greater facility than Lord Brahma. Like, what's the biggest material desire? So one of the biggest material desires is that the desire to be God. And so that man was so renounced, so-called, but so attached. And so Bhakti Prakash Maharaj talks about in that class that there's something called the Falgu River. And so it's a river, but it seems like it's dried up. But then if you put your finger into it, you see it's not. It's wet underneath the water. So this aspiration to become God is something like that. It's the biggest material desire. It's the last snare of Maya, actually. That we think, okay, like I'm free from sex desire. I'm free from this. I'm free from this desire of wanting to be recognized by people. I'm cooling out from society. I don't care about my college degree anymore, throw that in the trash or whatever. I don't care about my family, I'm renounced, go to the forest. But then one goes to the forest and one renounces, but then one thinks at one point, well, had this amazing epiphany. And then you see like people like that, the so-called spiritual people, just had like this amazing realization, like I was like here in the moment, I was being here now. But I was there then, and then in the future, like now, and then I realized like I am God, and it's like nonsense, just crazy people, And any of you, as you read that book, Be Here Now, it's like, it's disgusting. Somebody let me borrow that one time when I first moved into the temple, Hare Krishna temple. And like, I remember like I flipped open to it in one page, and it was just like pornography practically. I was like, what is this? It's not spiritual. I like shut the book and like gave it back to the person. It was like, whatever. So be here now. And anyway, so they have their funny ideas, so many different people, be in the moment or whatever. But their conclusion comes to the point that, well, actually, I am the supreme. So this spiritual aspiration is material. So it's the greatest, it's the last snare of Maya, and it's a super big material desire. Because if you're thinking, well, I want a car, I want to be recognized in society, but you're thinking that I want to be God, and then how does that start? I don't really know. And then to even think, then to convince oneself one is God, that people think like, yeah, the sun is rising because of me, and the stars are shining because of me, and then like, whatever. Anyways, there's so many different things that they say. But it's literally, it's insane. It's crazy. And so this is a position of these false people. And then anyways, too, then they are not peaceful. And then whatever, somebody claims that they're God, and then they go to the dentist because their tooth is hurting. Tooth pains are actually very painful. So like, whereas, if you're God, then you can make the pain stop, but they can't make the pain stop. They can't do anything, actually. So anyways, so the gurus, they give this thing. And so the point is that we're trying to get rid of material desires. Not so much so that we're trying to get rid of material desires, but at the same time, we're cultivating spiritual desires. So that's spiritual desires, adding service, serving Krishna. And so that's what Srila Prabhupada is making the point here at the end of that purport, is that they want only to serve the Lord anywhere in the material or spiritual worlds that the Lord desires. So that's the perfection of Krishna consciousness, is to come to the platform where we only desire what Krishna wants or what the guru wants. This is the same thing. Guru, what is this? Guru. There's different verses, but I don't even know if I can remember it. Maybe you know this verse. What is this? What is it? Krishna. It's like I'm tipping my tongue. This verse that when one, what is it? Dvitiya binive shatat shat. That, you know that verse talking about. Can you figure out where it is? No. Yeah. Can you just pull that verse up, or tell somebody to pull it up? I forget. I don't remember. I think it's 11:2, 30 something, 34. I don't remember exactly. That's like when I need to memorize that one. You can just figure that out. But anyways, but then we also sing too. What is this? Shakshadratena samashta shastra uktasya taba yate eva sarvi. So that the oneness and the desire of the spiritual master and of Krishna. So if we follow the orders of the spiritual master, which we should, then it's cultivating that same mood of just, if we simply desire, what the guru wants, then we'll be safe. And if we serve, if we're always thinking like that and always meditating on the instruction of the spiritual master, then we're good. You pull up that verse? So it's this, Bhaktiyaika Yesham Gurudeva Tatma. So go to the word for word. So Gurudevata, Bhaktiyaika. So scroll down. So devotion, unalloyed devotion for the Lord, and for the one who sees his guru as a spiritual master as his life and soul. So this verse, Prabhupada would quote very much so. The first part is super famous, and it's really important actually for understanding just what happens when we lose sight of Krishna. But anyway, whether it's 2% or 99%. But I'll read the translation real quick. So fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of his absorption in the external, illusory energy of the Lord. When a living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the potency of illusion called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom he should accept as his worshipful deity and his very life and soul. So we should aim for that, aspire for that, and achieve that of making the spiritual master as our very life and soul. And so, anyways, the point is so if we serving that desire of, the Lord here, which is Srila Prabhupada is expressing in the last point of this paragraph, is interlinked with the desire to serve the spiritual master anywhere in the material or spiritual worlds. And anyways, we see that, and we can get inspiration from that by different devotees we know and our own spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada and such. Another point here is, which is important, and so this, it's not just, so we have to have that desire, so to serve the spiritual master, serve Krishna. So but the thing is that we have to properly cultivate that desire, and that's very important. I was speaking a little bit about that in the beginning. Cultivating Krishna consciousness properly. It's foundational, actually, to just the whole Vaishnava Siddhanta. The Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu is based on this principle. Whoever's in control, you can pull up this verse from the Madhya Lila So Majji Leela, chapter 19, text 167. And this is a famous verse, and everybody should learn this verse. Anyways, I don't know who knows it, but the verse is one of the foundational verses of the Bhakti Rashmrita Sindhu. Does anybody know that verse except Richard? Anybody? Move it. Move it. Anybody know it? It's super important, actually. Srila Prabhupada would quote this verse a lot. It's the thing. I mean, if it's like one of those things that, like, if you only know like 10 verses, then like that's one of them. Sarvadhamma Parityajam Manmana. There's a couple verses like that like if you're in the ashram for like 20 years and you don't learn slokas, at least learn those. Or whatever you're doing, if you're practicing Krishna, it's super important, actually, because the thing is that this verse in particular, it's the basis. It's like the basis of Bhakti Rashmrita Sindhu. And then, like, we talk so many things, like what is this? This nectar of instruction. That all the, we're talking about bathing in Radhakund. We're not talking about bathing in Radhakund. But if we were to, then it's like that begins with Vajra Vegam, Manasokota Vegam. Otherwise, like, if you forget that, then it's like, and then we see so many people, they go bathe in Radhakund or whatever. Or they may not bathe in Radhakund, but, they're chanting Hare Krishna and crying and then going and smoking a cigarette. So that these things have to be the foundation by which we understand Krishna consciousness. So this verse is, what is this? Anyabhilasita sunyam gyana karman yanavritam anukulnyana krishnanu silanam bhaktir. Was it uchite or uttama? So first class devotional service develops when first class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires. Knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy and fruit of action. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. And so Srila Prabhupada also gives, I think in 1972, in Radha Damodar, Prabhupada gave classes on the preface and also some of the nectar of devotion. And he explains this very much so. Let me see here. Just want to pull something up. Okay. So the thing is that we have to cultivate Krishna consciousness favorably. We have to serve Krishna favorably. And so that's kind of implied, what Srila Prabhupada's in here speaking, that the devotees of the Lord are by nature peaceful because they have a material hankering. Because the thing is that if we're cultivating Krishna consciousness with material desires, then we're not going to be peaceful. We're going to be really disturbed. And then, what is this? Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvaloka madheshwaram. Like that. So then Krishna is the enjoyer of everything. Okay, Krishna is meant to enjoy everything. Except a couple things. That's meant for me to enjoy. Krishna is the friend of everybody. But I am also the friend of everybody. And it sounds like Ishwara Ham Bogi. It's sounding a little bit like that. So, like that. So the Krishna is meant to enjoy everything. But if we're thinking, whatever, Krishna, if we're holding, 10% or 5% or 2% or 1%, or 0.01% or whatever it is, on for ourselves, to that degree will be in anxiety and will be unpeaceful. We will not be shanti. Anyways, so we have to cultivate Krishna consciousness properly. So this verse is very important. I would recommend that everybody learns that verse because it's foundational. Not that we're learning verses just so we sit in class and then somebody says what's that verse and then nobody knows it and then we don't want to get that verses don't want to get called out. Not that we're learning verses like that, but we learn these verses and then we meditate upon them and keep that as the basis of our lives by which we understand the rest of Shastra. So, anyways, just read a couple things here. So this is also what is this? Am I in the right place? Let me see here. But Krishna. But in the, what is this? And the introduction to Bhakti Rashmrita Sindhu, Srila Prabhupada explains this verse some. And I'll just read a little bit from that. Let me see here. Should I made a note? Okay, yeah. So just read a little bit from that. But anyways, you can read through this also. It's just a couple pages. But Srila Prabhupada also, like in here, kind of gives a purport to this verse. So the authorized descriptions of bhakti or devotional service following the footsteps of previous acharyas can be summarized in the following statement by Srila Rupa Goswami. So first class devotional service is known by one's tendency to be fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, serving the Lord favorably. The purport is that one may also be in Krishna consciousness unfavorably, but that cannot be counted as pure devotional service. So we can be in Krishna consciousness but be unfavorably. Probably the prime example of that is Kamsa given. But then anyways, also too, we may not be as extreme as Kamsa, but we may be Krishna consciousness, but just like not favorably. And then there's many different ways that can manifest. We're Krishna conscious, but whatever. We like to chant Hare Krishna, but we don't like to do service or something like that, or whatever it is. Or we like chanting, but we don't like the books or something like that. There's so many different ways that can manifest. So pure devotional service should be free from the desire for any material benefit or for sense gratification, as these desires are cultivated through fruitive activities and philosophical speculation. Generally, people are engaged in different activities to get some material profit, while most philosophers are engaged in proposing transcendental realization through volumes of word jugglery and speculation. Pure devotional service must always be free from such fruitive activities and philosophical speculations. One has to learn Krishna consciousness and pure devotional service from the authorities by spontaneous loving service. So there's a lot that could be said about all these things. I'm going to kind of crunch it down because I'll end here pretty soon. But so anyways, pure devotional service, cultivating that favorably. And then, let's see here. I just completely skip over a lot of this. So Srila Prabhupada, anyways, I just mentioned a couple things. So in the second paragraph, Prabhupada brings the point out about the yogi. The yogis, and he shows that these people, the height, the sunam bonum of a yogi, karmi, and gyani, and how pretty much they practically destroyed their Krishna consciousness, or whatever chances they had, or ruined their lives. Mentioned here is Devarsa Muni, who harassed Maharaj Ambarish. I was thinking about that actually. It's interesting because you would expect a yogi to be peaceful or understanding or quiet or something, or just like that. We see with what is this? I think Shamika Rishi, the Rishi that ignored Maharaj Pariksha. Maharaj Pariksha came and then he's just in meditation and kind of whatever. He had a snake around him and he just threw it off. He didn't really care so much. But the Devarsa Muni, he flipped out when Maharaj Ambarish, drank some water. So I was thinking that was kind of actually amazing, is that because you expect, yama niyama, control the senses, what are the rules and regulations of Astanga Yoga, brahmacharya, was that tapasya brahmacharyena samena cha damena cha, equal, in mind, seeing everything equally. The stone, I forget the verse exactly, but the stone and the gold, seeing that, equally, because no material possessions like that. And then but he just went full all out and wanted to kill him. And it wasn't, one thing too is interesting about that passage, it wasn't any dialogue or question or anything. He didn't really try to understand what happened. It was just freaking, I'm gonna kill you. It was, there's a lot of amazing things about that. And then also too, Hiranyakashipu, that's pretty obvious. So I was thinking one thing about this also too, is that when we're practicing Krishna consciousness, we can expect some trouble from the outside world, of course within ourselves also, but we can expect trouble from different individuals, and in practicing Krishna consciousness and spreading Krishna consciousness. And we see that that's commonly, that family members may give some, they may babble unnecessarily, and just say so many different things, if you, I've heard so many times, if you give up Krishna consciousness and just come home, then I'll give you so much money, like that, or whatever it is, or, stop, you don't have to practice Krishna consciousness so seriously. So anyways, there's so many different things like that. And we see also too that these devotees, that they didn't give up their Krishna consciousness, and they kept up in their practice despite such obstacles. So we can take inspiration from that. And Srila Prabhupada, of course, in the purport is one of the main points or sorry, well, the purport and also translation is that this friction between devotees and non-devotees gives rise to the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, we can't imagine that if we're practicing Krishna consciousness and then one of our family members is like, is Krishna in that pillar? And then, they smash a pillar and the Shingadev comes out. That may not happen for us, whatever. There may be some back and forth and things like that. Krishna may not appear as Nishingadev and kill our family. Nishingadev, please kill my parents. But that may not happen. But the thing is, the Krishna may appear in a different way. It may help us. It may take us out of that situation. And so the main thing is that, one of the main things is that, anyways, I'm not advocating that. Pray to Krishna to kill your parents. Just want to put that on record. I didn't say that, Your Honor. But anyways, Prahlad Maharaj also wasn't praying for Nishingadev to come and kill Hiranyakashipu. It just kind of happened inconsequentially. But anyways, so that when that friction happened, Krishna appears. That may not happen in our lives, or it may happen. It's hard to say. We'll have to see. But anyway, so Krishna's mercy comes in different ways, and that's being mentioned here with this word. Was it anukampitaha? Yeah, anukampita atma, the all-compassionate Lord. So Krishna's compassionate. A lot can be said about that. I'm just going to kind of wind it down. So it's a big topic. A lot can be said about that, but we have to have faith in seniors in Krishna consciousness and devotees. Maybe seniors, may also be juniors, having faith in them also. A lot can be said about that. Someone may be junior to us in Krishna consciousness, but then have more pure faith, and maybe more surrendered. And so we should respect those devotees and worship those devotees also. That's a big topic. I'm not going to get so much into that now. Also, having faith in the Guru and the Shastra, in Krishna's mercy, even in difficult situations. That's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam so much, because it's easy to have faith in Krishna's mercy. Like if we were to go out and do 100 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, and then you get back and be like, that is Krishna's mercy for sure, but then, think, I felt Krishna's mercy, doing 1,000 Srimad Bhagavatam sets. It was, I felt that so much. And it's like, yeah, that's definitely there. We could feel that, and we should definitely, if we're distributing a lot of books and doing amazing things in Krishna's service, recognize the mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy of Krishna. It's easy to feel that and see like, yeah, that's Krishna's mercy. But then when there's like test, or like there's some problem, or like, we go out on book distribution and someone smacks us in the face, it's kind of hard to be like, dang, like, is that Krishna's mercy? Like, like what's going on? Like, Hare Krishna, like, I chanted japa this morning, I didn't fall asleep. I served out prasad. I cooked breakfast and then I served out prasadam. I made extra things, like everybody liked it, came out good. They have to like adjust the salt. Everything was like pucka, my spiritual master like recognized me, and then it was like, you can think too that like, so many different things, it was like, I was there at Vyas Puja and then my guru called me on the stage and then like, everybody was cheering and I went up and then I gave like amazing speech and like, of course, like, Gurudev, Kripa Bindudiya, it's like so many, and it's like, why is like Krishna doing it? I got like smacked on Sankirtan, and then it's like, okay, like when he was, okay, that was Krishna's mercy, and then another person smacks us, and it's like, what's going on? So then it's like, the point I'm making is like, it can be difficult to like see Krishna's hand in that. But anyways, there's so much that can be said about that. But one thing is that, whatever the difficult situation is, whether it's good or it's bad, we see that great devotees, they're Krishna conscious in both situations, whatever's going on in their lives. And like with Kunti, there's so many examples in the Shastra. Kunti's there and the Pandavas, they suffered so much for so many years. Wasn't just for like 5 minutes out on Sankirtan, or for one day. They had a bad day on book distribution, and like, is Krishna consciousness real? Sometimes book distribution can be like that. Especially if it's difficult. It's just like, oh my God. It's just like all, what is it? Like Arjuna is praying, like my Gandiva bow is slipping. It's like my skin is burning. and feel so weak, just like, or we get like heavily chastised and they're just like laying like down on the ground, looking at the ceiling, like, what am I going to do with my life? So, existential crisis. So, Krishna consciousness can be like that sometimes. So we have to push beyond that. And so anyways, there's also, what to do. Listen to a lot of classes by Bhakti Vikas Maharaj. So he gave that class in Lika. Most of us were there for that. I think it was Struggles Make Us Strong. So anyways, he kind of talks about that point in that class. But the struggles are there, and they help us become more Krishna conscious, make us strong, And he gave that example of the caterpillar and then the cocoon. That if you break the caterpillar out of the cocoon too soon, then then it's something between like a butterfly and a caterpillar, some hybrid creature who just dies. So it's not so a butterfly, when it's successfully gone through what do they call that, metamorphosis? Is that what that's called? Yeah. When it goes successfully through metamorphosis, and then it comes out strong, and then it breaks free, and then it flies away, and then you like that, and then it enjoys the life happily ever after in the material world until some bird comes and eats it. So anyways, so the thing is that the struggles make us strong in Krishna consciousness. And kind of just bring it back to the main point in the beginning. Material life is difficult, and Krishna consciousness is also difficult, but Krishna consciousness is a thing that's worth struggling for. It's worth fighting for. It's the only thing worth it, actually. And so the Shastras there, we read the books, we hear from the spiritual master, and we should have that conviction, actually, that Krishna consciousness is worthwhile. That is something valuable. And it definitely is. We have to be convinced by that. And there's different things like that. We should also realize the futility of the material world. That's mentioned, I think, before that verse. What is that? Krishna, what's that verse? That Tasmat Guru Papadyeta Jignashu Shayam Uttamam. I think that's mentioned before that one, he's fried out in the material world and enjoying in the heavenly planets and all those things. And then, so therefore the conclusion is to approach the spiritual master. Tasmat Guru Papadyeta Jignashu Shayam Uttamam. And then inquire from him about, the absolute truth. And then what is that? And then that he's heard properly, and then he's heard the spiritual science, and he has full faith in that. So we're trying to develop full faith in Krishna consciousness. And it's the cultivation, it's not overnight. And so anyways, there's different weeds there and things like that, different obstacles, different setbacks, different things, so many different things. And there's a lot that could be said about that, but just kind of summarizing it. Krishna consciousness is worth it. And so Krishna will help us. And so his mercy may manifest in different ways when that friction is there. And we may appreciate his mercy also more in a difficult situation of Krishna coming through and Krishna helping. And so Krishna makes that, or not Krishna, but that point is made, and also, I forget where exactly. It's in the first canto, I think chapter 8 somewhere. But Srila Prabhupada makes the point that, maybe we can pull that up actually. But anyways, I won't be able to find it. Paraphrasing. Prabhupada makes the point that when one calls on the Lord more feelingly, that verse, I think that's like one that, with Kunti's prayers, that when one is like sufficiently, the material, when one is like exhausted materially, then those who are materially like, whatever, I'm totally not saying it exactly, but those who are like materially excited, they can't call on you with feeling. Maybe pull up, anyways, but Prabhupada makes that point in the purport. Like, it gives an example of Draupadi that she called Govinda. So sometimes struggles in Krishna consciousness, difficulties, pressure can help us to call on Krishna more intensely with more feeling. And so anyways, we're trying to develop feeling, we're trying to develop Krishna consciousness. So that may help us to develop that. And anyways, to kind of summarize it and just bring it into the context, Uddhava's remembering Krishna. And the example is given here of the sun rising. And so this ends here by saying, after gradually rising to the meridian of Dwarka, the Lord set like the sun, placing everything in darkness, as described by Uddhava. So Uddhava is in darkness. He's in darkness, but not in darkness. But in darkness, and that Krishna is gone, and he's remembering Krishna so intensely, remembering everything, and he's just locked in on that. And so, yeah, then there's so many different examples of that given. Devotees feeling separation from Krishna and then being locked in on that and experiencing the ecstasy that comes with that. But then it's ecstasy, but then it doesn't seem like ecstasy. In the sense, it is ecstasy, but it's painful ecstasy. I think that's mentioned here in other verses, that he's distressed and things. But anyways, it's transcendental, of course, but anyways, that's a whole topic in and of itself. So Uddhava is feeling that pressure and that anxiety, and Krishna's gone, and so he's feeling he's in darkness, and so he's just remembering Krishna intensely. And so sometimes that intensity can help us to become Krishna conscious really quick and really purposefully. So anyways, Hare Krishna. If there's any questions or comments, I might take like one or two. We can have them now. I was going to have some other things to say, but I didn't say that. But anyways. Anybody have a question? Yeah, okay. You got the mic or something? Oh, it's over there.
It's regarding like the word for word in the original verse. And he was saying that Krishna appears with the plenary portions of the Mahatattva.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused. I thought the Mahatattva was like, there's like the Vishnu Purusha. There's like the Purusha avatars, and then like the Mahatattva was like its own separate thing.
Yeah. So just a couple of things about that. So one thing is, I'll be honest with you. I read that and I was a little confused exactly by that. The Acharyas bring out the point, is here, I think I have it. So one thing they mentioned that Mahat also, and they quote different shastras, but that also can mean jiva. And so then they cite a verse that explains that, and then they say that, what is this? I can just read it real quick. So they say Ori comes with the Purusha avatars according to the Brahma Sutras, and then Mahadvach Cha Mahat, and then continuing. So it does not refer to the Mahatva, but refers to the Jivas. And then the Vishnu Sahasranam, he is called Mahat Bhutam. The Lord gave rise to the Jivas, which are called Mahat, or he comes endowed with great dynasties. So the Acharyas have mentioned in that also, that it can be like his plenary portions, or it could also be he comes down with devotees, jivas, like that, or great dynasties. So that's kind of like
in general.
Yeah, it can mean different things. Yeah. Or I think it also made the point in the purport that he comes down with those plenary portions that control the Mahatattva.
Yeah, it was referring to, I think in the purport it was referring to the Purusha avatar.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Mahad Amsa Yuktaha. And it indicates that he's accompanied by Purushas who create the Mahatattva. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What was that?
Hare Krishna? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so, one thing, the name that your yogi is something fellowship. That's the name of something. Who is big man,
Yeah. What is it? Rama Maharishi or something also? Yeah, Ramana Maharshi. Yeah.
And the other one is, speaking one's most relevant Krishna. So the angle of, speaking of that red shooting an arrow, speaking of clarify Krishna, remember?
Huh?
Do you remember you were saying that?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So in this regard, there was once Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati going and given some devotees some esoteric, some mantra to chant.
Yeah.
So in that regard, so the devotees, they were discussing how they want to throw flowers at Krishna. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, all of the legacy and all that was trying. And so millions of birds have been trying to throw flowers at Krishna, but haven't gotten that opportunity. They being harm people. they're desiring to observe flowers of Krishna. And I could pull up that quote and send it to you and try to.
You can send that. Yeah, I know that quote. I had just mentioned that because I was speaking and I didn't want to say we're going to shoot an arrow at Krishna's foot.
Yeah. Also not.
Yeah.
Those flowers of Krishna.
Yeah. Okay. I understand what you're saying, but anyways, thank you. Alrighty. Anything else? So, anyway, just to clarify, there's that quote with Bhakti Samad Saraswati Thakur. He's mentioned the disciples were chanting the Gayatri mantra there, so they were talking about how they were desirous of throwing, flowers at Krishna's lotus feet. So just to clarify, I'm not telling everybody to throw flowers at Krishna's lotus feet and ignore and jump over the guru, but I was just making the point that because I was speaking in that way that, not to say to shoot an arrow at Krishna's lotus feet and be like Jara, the hunter, but just to kind of replace it like that. But anyways, of course, we offer everything to the spiritual master. Just to clarify that mistake that I made. So, yes, you had something.
Could you explain like what cultivating material desires is? Because it seemed like, it seems like it's like a natural thing. Like what's the difference between cultivating material desires and just having them,
Yeah, so cultivating material desires would be something like, for instance, I was thinking something really simple. So we want to be, like just a job, for instance. So we want to get a job, and then we have a job, but then it's like, we make enough to survive, but then it's like, it's not enough just to make enough and to make enough to survive. We want more money, and then in the workplace, we want to be like recognized like a great person and like someone that's very like successful in our career, and then we want to be like employee of the month, and we want to just move up and up on the corporate ladder. So that's something like cultivating. Whereas like having it may be like, well, I have this desire to like whatever, like be like recognized in the company or something, but I understand that like the goal of life is to be Krishna conscious, so then like I shouldn't like aspire to like such a big position and just focus, use whatever extra energy and endeavor I have to focus in on Krishna consciousness, something like that, simplified. Yes.
The understanding that I had about the desire to be God or to think oneself God being the last man of Maya, I was understanding that as like, persons who have like, some exalted material qualities or whatever, like that's like the last like snare of Maya that they have to overcome. But then we can also see that people that have this mentality are actually like really degraded and seem to be really like in the lowest modes. So was my understanding incorrect, or like does that make sense? How to understand?
It's manifest differently, I think, in the West. Generally, like in the Vedic paradigm, people that had that desire to be God, they would follow like strictly all the rules and regulations, and like for instance in the Shankaracharya Sampradaya, they take sannyas, and then that's how you start spiritual life. So to take sannyas, there's so many different rules and regulations, and so many of them, what to speak of rules and regulations, one has to be celibate. Whereas like in the West and things, this philosophy of Mayavad has, it degrades always, but it's because it's lost touch with like the Vedic culture, and it's just, whatever, it's just kind of like a floating philosophy for most people. It just attaches to their natural swabhav of hedonism. And so anyways, they're already grossly materialistic, and then they just adopt this philosophy to like justify it, or it goes into their life. So it manifests differently according to like where it's at, like in the world. So, alrighty, thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Prabhupada ki.